Hey everybody, it's Rabbit. Welcome to the channel, and today we're just going to do a nice little quick video before the next update comes out, talking about two of the vehicles that are scheduled to be removed. And spoiler, you're probably not missing much if you don't bother researching them. Now, it's important to note that when Gaijin removes a vehicle, it's not just completely deleted from the game. It is essentially just locked so that new players can no longer get access to it. If you already have it, it will stay on your account. So as far as the reasons why a vehicle may be removed, there's actually a few of them. A very common one is that if a new tech tree gets announced and that tech tree previously had vehicles in a different tech tree, the vehicles in the different tech tree are removed and added to the new one. Big example, when Israel got launched, all the Israeli vehicles from other tech trees were removed, and I think all of them were put in the Israeli tech tree. So that's like one example of when that could happen. Another example of when something might get removed is, for example, when it's just completely ahistorical, like the vehicle just didn't exist or didn't really make sense. So if we look at like a lot of the removed German vehicles, we have the Flak Panzer 341, the Karelian. This only existed as a wooden mock-up. There's no real evidence suggesting one was ever built, so it's kind of just a fictional vehicle. Like Gaijin is doing a lot of extrapolating on it. Next up, you have the King Tiger 10.5 centimeter. This vehicle was essentially physically impossible. The 10.5 centimeter breach couldn't fit inside the King Tiger turret at all, so that one was literally impossible, like it couldn't be built. You also have the Panther II. The Panther II is kind of odd because, okay, I actually got to see the Panther II in person because the Armor and Cavalry collection for the US Army has one of the few remaining examples. I think it might have the only remaining example. So here's a picture of Gaijin's Panther II, and here's a picture of the actual Panther II. So yeah, like, the actual Panther II was actually a pretty modest project very early in the Panther's life cycle, and it mostly just like focused around increasing the side armor a little. But German engineers discovered that by slapping some like side skirts on them, they could achieve essentially the same effect, because they were just trying to protect the vehicle against things like anti-tank rifles that, despite not being terrifically effective individually, the Soviets had a lot of them. So yeah, like essentially by slapping side skirts on, they could completely protect the vehicle, so it wasn't really deemed all that necessary, and the project was just scrapped. What Gaijin did for the Panther II, and I think World of Tanks kind of does this as well, where they combine a bunch of different like later projects for the Panther into one like super vehicle, and they call that Panther II, but that's not really what the Panther II was. The Panther II didn't use the small term, it didn't use the 88 centimeter, didn't have night vision or anything crazy like that. So yeah, the Panther II as depicted in game was never an actual vehicle. There was no vehicle that had all of those projects on like one platform. The mouse got removed because the mouse was kind of hard to balance, or at least that was the line from Gaijin. They've kind of reintroduced it in the game like every like year or so as a bit of an event vehicle, like a pseudo event vehicle where you can research it when it comes around for like the anniversaries. The mouse does tend to be kind of food if it goes into an up tier, like in an 8-7 match, everybody's firing ABF SDS rounds, so the mouse does kind of get annihilated in those matches. On the other hand, in max down tiers, it can kind of stomp, so it's in this awkward position where it's never really going to be balanced. Like in a max up tier, you can legitimately be fighting optically guided AGM-62s dropped by like A4s, so the mouse does not have a good time there. But yeah, it's just one of those. I don't know. I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with the mouse specifically being removed. I think Gaijin just wants to create artificial scarcity for it and hold it in their pocket as an event vehicle, but it's whatever. Another big reason why vehicles can potentially get removed is if they're just really, really, really bad. This happened to two French starter tanks, if memory serves. Like, both of them were just removed because they were awful. They had so little penetration they couldn't hurt anything. They were also very slow. They also didn't have armor. Like, they had no redeeming characteristics. The PO2 was also removed because it was absolutely awful. It was the worst plane in the game. Incredibly slow. Its only weapon was a gunner, like, rear-mounted weapon. It was terrible. And of course, today we have the American, the P-26 pea shooter. One of them is getting removed, not all of them, and it's not the one with the 50 cal and 200 pound bombs, because that one's actually useful. It's one of the trash ones that only has like 230 cals or something, so you're not really missing much, but you can just go ahead and grab all the pea shooters real quick anyway if you want to. The other one is the Chinese PT-76. The Chinese PT-76 is not to be confused with the Russian PT-76B. The Russian PT-76B has a stabilizer fires heat, and has a reasonably fast reload. The Chinese one does all of that except it doesn't have a stabilizer, and that's enough to kind of kill it stone dead. Even with the stabilizer, the Russian one's not exactly like amazing, especially because these heat rounds like are very inconsistent in terms of like their internal damage and even their penetration. Because of these BRs, they're fighting like World War II vehicles that tend to have a lot of like weird gaps on them, and those weird gaps will just set off the heat fuse prematurely. So even though it says you have 200 millimeters of pen, you will completely bounce off of like useless plates that don't really do anything. So yeah, it's the Chinese PT-76 has basically no redeeming qualities. It's not terrifically fast, it doesn't have any armor, its turret traverse is slow, its gun depression is bad. It has a good rate of fire. On paper, it has good pen, although you'll find it often fails to pen or fails to do any meaningful damage against a lot of opponents. Oh yeah, it has stock APCR too. That's awful. That is a terrible experience. Would not wish that on my worst enemy. Stock APCR is terrible. It doesn't even have good penetration either. It doesn't even have an APHE fuse to like get you by if you have like side shots or anything. You just always have to use the heat or the APCR, which is completely awful. Like, you're not missing anything by not having it, but you could go ahead and start researching and picking it up just to have it in case you wanted to. Personally, the problem is, like, China doesn't have a 5-0 lineup. It has, I think the 76 is, like, the only 5-0 vehicle. And then even if you go to 5-3, you have, like, the Jackson and I think the SU-100, which isn't really anything all that impressive. So, like, your next real lineup is 5-7, where you have the M18 Hellcat, the M36 Jackson, the T-34-85, the T-34-85 Guy. I think you could also have the Hong Fong, although that might be a little earlier. So in that lineup, you just run the Hellcat, because the Hellcat's a better scout. It's faster, the gun is a lot more reliable. Like, it doesn't have armor, but neither does the PT-76. So yeah, you just run the Hellcat. Hellcat also has a 50 cal. 50 cals are super useful. So yeah, you're not missing anything if you just completely skip this vehicle. It's really has no redeeming characteristics. But you can go ahead and grab it if you want to. Gaijin did buff it the same time it buffed the Russian one by giving it a faster reload. Did not help this thing at all. It is absolutely terrible. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good time. Hope you, if you choose to, have fun grinding the PT-76 and getting that before it gets removed from the game. And yeah, hope to see you next time. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe. Have a nice day, everybody.